Thank you everyone for joining us for the final security session, a panel discussion that takes us from theory to application, providing real-world examples of some of the things we've been discussing today. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce the participants for our final session. We have Mark Newman, who is an Executive Technical Security Specialist at IBM. We have Lisa Kavanaugh, who is a Practice Executive here at MicroStrategies. We have Scott Smith, who is a Senior Vice President here at MicroStrategies. Ed Serafin, who is the Chief of Security here at MicroStrategies. And last but certainly not least is our moderator for this panel, Mike Mispelli. Mike's the Vice President of Security Services here at MicroStrategies. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mike.
Thanks very much, Avery. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you joining. Mark and Lisa, that was an awesome session. Not only a discussion up front in terms of, how companies are reacting in terms of COVID and the increase in COVID-related risks, but the demo was definitely eye-catching in terms of, just the amount of integrations and that single pane of glass that you can use with all the different products and services that are out there. So, and just to jump into it real quick, I wanted to ask the panel, given the increases in threat landscape as a result of COVID, how do you approach improving security measures to help protect your organization? I guess I'll start with Mark, and then I'd ask the rest of the panel to chime in.
Sure, I'll jump in there. But first, I got to say, Ed, you got the coolest background there with your live threat feeds going on. I mean, that is rocking good. That is the coolest thing. We really hit the market perfect with our Cloud Pack security because these threats are coming in faster than we ever did before. And with our new platform, we're really helping customers, I believe, look at all the data, help them mine the false positives, and help them look at what they need to with a remote workforce with our case manager. So I think really what we have done, it wasn't coincidental. We did not know COVID was coming. It just kind of happened, but we have a tool I think that's going to aid customers today.
Ed, are you
Lisa,
good?
or
Can
Ed,
you talk? I was just going to
I'm
say.
good. Can you hear me?
Perfect.
Yeah, we
absolutely.
can,
No,
sure.
Ed was still muted. Ed, what are your thoughts around that?
So, with the whole landscape that shifted now to work from home, that changes all of our attack vectors, that changes how we do business, how we respond to incidents and security events as they occur. So, it's all about due diligence and vigilance. Everyone in the organization is a member of security. And because of that, training's important, and tools that increase our speed to respond are important. So, it's a complicated and challenging environment right now, but it's very workable if we know how to handle it.
What are your thoughts, Scott?
I would agree. The biggest thing.
Scott, can you go a little louder?
I said the biggest thing that I see is employee education. Can you hear me?
Yep. We can hear you. You're good.
Okay.
Yep.
I said the biggest thing is employee education, making sure that your users are trained and they're helping the security team actually, notifying us and, letting us know what they see.
Well, yeah, and I think to your point, given the fact that the huge, I think you said 14,000 increase in phishing cases, Mark, when we talked earlier, and then you just alluded to it, it's not an organization by themselves can't just solve for that. It's every single person in the organization has to play a part. And I think, Mark, you indicated, what IBM did as far as when they responded to, and Scott and we did similar things as far as educating people on what to look for so that they're not, taken advantage of when they're at home and they think that, no one's going to prey on them with respect to phishing attacks, but we are all extensions at home of our organization. So I would agree that, ensuring that we as the end users recognize the role we play and are vigilant in what we do with respect to protecting the security of our organizations.
And Lisa, if I'd add on to that, and this is Mark Newman's little tip, is IBM spent a lot of time building out this education. And I realized my kids were at home from college for the beginning of the pandemic because they got sent home. They're part of my organization because they're sharing my network. So I actually had them watch with me the employee education because I realized they need to be safe to keep me safe, to keep my company safe. So a little tip for people on the phone is educate your kids also, because they are now part of your work from home employee network.
Good point.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Yeah, I mean, I think that we don't necessarily think about that. We go into our little offices if we have them at home, and we think that that's what's going to be enough, but we're all connected to the network, and that's what's exposing everything. So we have to think about things differently. And that was a shift. It was a mindset shift, I think, for many people at home. I think also because of us, we were just trying to figure out what to do. So, I'm sorry, Ed, what were you going to say?
Go ahead, Ed.
So to build off of Scott's point, as far as training is concerned, in the enterprise, we used to focus primarily on safe practices, good cyber hygiene in the office. So there's a massive shift now, because all of our security traditionally has been securing our home front, securing our enterprise. And when you take your workforce, 100% of your workforce, and distribute them back to their homes, you're now taking your security and keeping it in the enterprise, and it's not following the employee necessarily back to their house. And these are hostile environments and need to be treated as such. So when we train our staff, I mean, the standard security awareness training, only goes so far. In this situation, we also need to teach our staff personal device security and best practices at home. So, I mean, the staples still stand, practice smart password management, enable two-factor authentication across the board where possible, MFA, 2FA, what have you. Get those systems working. Turn off WPS and Universal Plug and Play, or UPnP, on your personal routers. Those are huge security threats in your own home that we overlook because we're looking for convenience at the house. We're not looking for security. So we have these things turned on, and it makes attackers, it allows attackers to compromise and breach your home much easier. I mean, even when I work offensive and red team, I look for things like WPS. Is that turned on? That's Wi-Fi protective setup, if you're unaware of what the acronym stands for. Universal plug and play is another thing. It allows me to attach to the network, and the router will do everything in its power to allow me to operate and make my life easier as a hacker. And these are all things that are bad when we're trying to secure our home front. Another thing is to turn on WPA2. There is a recommendation for WPA3, but there's security vulnerabilities present in that still, so I'd still focus on WPA2 for your home Wi-Fi, and make sure, again, you have a long 128-bit character password protecting that Wi-Fi, because we don't have enterprise multi-factor authentication at home. So it's important that we relay this information to our staff members, even dealing with patching and printers and things like that. We have to be mindful today of those things.
Yeah, and Ed, if I were to weigh in on that, and I know because you look like a bit of a techie with all this behind you, IBM offers QRadar. It's basically a trial version that you can install at home. It's free. It does not let you do millions of events or anything like that. But the reason I bring that up is if I figure the audience on this call, these customers, you're all pretty technical if you're watching this session. Load it at home. It's free. Try it out. But here's what happened, as Ed said, I loaded it at my home, and it came back saying, your printer that does faxing and does scanning and all is at risk because it has back firmware. QRadar will help you look at your network and home network and just, diagnose about it. And in fact, one of our gentlemen called Jose Bravo, just Google him on YouTube. He has a whole video of how to set up QRadar for free at home. It'll give you a little chance of what a SIM can do for you, but also how is your home network, is it protected? And again, the cost of it is for free for home users.
I've actually got a chance to work with QRadar, the community edition, and I was very glad to see IBM pushing that out there, because we really needed a community edition version just to wrap our heads around, get some familiarity with the platform. But more importantly, we don't have enterprise security at home, so that's a pretty bold step forward when dealing with home front security. And it's an excellent platform. Its capabilities are pretty well versed.
And I think that kind of goes into kind of what role do we play? I think we're so used to coming into the environment at the office and saying, okay, well, our security team is going to take care of making sure all the tools are in place, and they'll make sure that everything's locked down on my computer. But we really have to take more of a proactive approach at home because of that, and we were talking a little bit, Mark, about, again, that basic hygiene and the contact tracing around the cybersecurity lessons. But I think that's also another one is around just, again, being proactive. And we've relied so heavily on our security teams at the office. We have to kind of learn from them at home and apply that, but there isn't a lot of great stuff to be able to do that at the home side. So that is really, it's a great thought for everybody, is to really take those best practices and how do we apply them to our homes and to what we do with respect to our home networks. Any thoughts on that, Scott? On that piece, anything else to add?
No, I mean, we covered a lot of it. We had to shift our strategy a little bit. Because like Ed said, all the tools in the world at the office that can see everything that's going on our network here. But as soon as you put 100 and something people out there working from home, you now have 100 and something networks that you have to take control over, but you can't take control over them. So you do have to shift your strategy a lot. So whether that be more agents or applications running on each individual machine to give us the visibility that we need. But it did cause us to rethink some things, that's for sure.
Right, and Scott, if I'd weigh in on that, I work with lots of customers every day and every year, and I'm finding out that customers are good at what they do. If you're in retail, you're great at retail. If you're good at manufacturing, you're great at manufacturing. If you're in healthcare, you're really being targeted now. And you really need to have a partner like MicroStrategies. You guys are the smart people at MicroStrategies, can help them understand the security portfolio. Again, they're good at what they do, but they need a strong partner that's going to help them plan the security, especially because it came at them quick, fast, with no warning. And again, so the customers that call, lean on MicroStrategies. They can help you put that plan together to help you get, all your work from home securely done. So again, I'm just sharing that, the customers that go it alone usually have a rough road, and people that partner with MicroStrategies, they're far better positioned to ride the wave of change that's coming.
I just want to add to that too, Mark. I'm sorry.
Nope.
Mike,
go ahead, Lisa. Go.
Quick. I'm sorry. So I spent 23 years of my life in retail, and retail obviously was hit very early with respect to some of the things around security and security best practices with respect to PCI and cardholder data and how valuable that data was to be able to other people. So, and it was overwhelming. I mean, I remember that there were team members that I had that were focused on driving strategic initiatives. And when, PCI first came out, I slowly lost over a period of 3 years those people, and all they did was focus on security and protecting the retail side of the world as well as, the corporate office. And you can't do it alone. There were a lot of people that we had to rely on, as well as in some situations, you have to ask yourself, what is really core to your business? What do you want to do? To your point, are you in the cybersecurity business, or are you in the retail business, or are you in the healthcare business? And then how do you want to leverage other services out there that can help you with that? Because it is overwhelming to be able to try to keep up with all the pieces and that are required to remain vigilant with respect to cybersecurity. I'm sorry, Mike. I just wanted Mark had opened that door, and I just wanted to add to that.
No, go right ahead. You guys are doing great.
It's great that you mentioned that, Lisa, because what has happened, it wasn't too long ago that cybersecurity and information system security was just something a good sysadmin would do.
Mm-hmm.
All of our security was on the perimeter, and we found out that's a bad idea. And as we've evolved our security to today, it don't matter what business you're in the business of security today, whether it's compliance issues, whether it's dealing with financial transactions, or whether you're just a law office. Security is mandatory across the board. If you're not playing in the security sector and taking that seriously, you're doing something wrong, and you're in trouble, because hope is not a strategy. We all hope that we don't get hacked and breached, but it's not a reliable strategy. It will happen. It's just a matter of, are you prepared, and how do you address it when it does happen?
Absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things I want to bring up to the people in the audience is something to start looking at is we are adding in December into our CloudFax strategy, if you're on the session I did before this, called Risk Manager. And it's really a new way now to look at risk over time of how your crown jewels, your customer data, your credit card data, social security data is being protected. And we're, for the first time ever, going to give you the ability with a dashboard to say, we're actually increasing in risk or decreasing in risk over time. So again, as you start looking at your risk security tools, think about, well, how do I even know if we're getting better or getting worse out there? So again, you need tools like a risk management type tool. So as you start looking, for budgeting next year, think about that, because you need to figure out if you're getting better or worse as these new things are hitting you faster than before.
Mentioning budgets, it's important, and I evangelize this point time and time again over my career. We have to stop looking at security as just a spend. There is a massive return on investment for security and good security posture, and that is you get to stay in business. Because in today's day and age, one massive breach, okay, a company like Sony might be able to weather that storm, but the rest of us can't. So we need to be proactive, as Lisa said, and ensure that we're securing our home front and doing everything in our power so when the inevitable happens, we're ready.
Absolutely.
So guys, just to touch on something Mark was talking about earlier, and I'm curious what your thoughts are outside of Cloud Pak for Security, but with all the different, there's so much to do, there's so many vendors, there's so much complexity, there's so many alerts. How can you help your customers today with all the different tools and things that they have, kind of bring all that information together, and help them manage through that environment?
Well, I'll jump in first. That's an
Sure.
excellent question, and that is a challenge that we've been addressing for years. I mean, we have all these tools, especially today. We have all these tools, all these separate logins, on-prem, off-prem, in the cloud, SaaS. We have just an onslaught of data. And that's why it's good to understand this philosophy. Attackers use graphs and think in terms of graphs, while defenders think in terms of lists. And this is why attackers always win, because while they have to just piece together some pieces of the puzzle, just enough to breach your environment, and think in terms of that visualization as they're building their recon and footprinting your environment, us as the blue team, the defenders, we have thousands of lists, assets, we have CMDBs, we have ACLs, so many lists, so many things, and there's so much noise. It is critical to have a single pane of glass to bring that all together. And the beautiful part about today's tech is we're moving in further and further into artificial intelligence, and AI has a big part to play in this by silencing and quieting a lot of that noise, because that's what we're dealing with, signal to noise ratio, right? When you have too much noise, you don't have your eyes and attention on the important signals. So by silencing that and providing a single pane of glass, such as what QRadar does, by logging into that platform at a glance, you could see everything that's going on in the environment. That actionable intelligence is key, and this is how we truly defend our environment.
It's a good point, Ed. And I'd be curious, Scott. I mean, I know a lot of these companies that we talk about today, they're these enterprise customers, right, who can afford all these tools and stuff. And I know, especially in our particular geography, we deal with a lot of smaller mid-market customers. How would you beef up their security or help them with their security posture, knowing that they can't afford 10 to 26 different tools that some of these larger corporations can?
That's where our MSP program comes into play, right? We can handle that. It's not, in my opinion, it's not so much the tools. It's what do you do with the results that the tools give you. So you could sell some relatively inexpensive, security solutions, put them in a customer's location, get them all up and running, and a month later, what's happening? Nobody's looking at those alerts. They're just, it's basically a waste. You have to invest in the people to respond to whatever alerts we actually do see. So we have our MSP team that's staffed 24/7, where alerts can come in, and we will respond for you.
And that's critical.
That's great.
Your point here, Scott. I mean, in security specifically, we are influenced by 3 spheres of influence. We have people, process, and technology. We train the people, we build processes and policies, and then we enact them with the technology. And it's important to understand there is no silver bullet product out there that makes security easy. And to Scott's point, yeah, we could sell any tech we want. I mean, put it in your office, we'll even set it up for you, but no one's going to check the logs. And even if they do, it's a matter of knowing what to do with that information. You know, threat intelligence, knowing where to get that, knowing how to conduct an investigation from start to finish, how to follow the incident response process. That all requires extensive training and extensive skill set with experience. And there's certain things, if I look at the screen, I'm just going to pick off as false positive that a new person to security is going to look at and start panicking and shutting everything down. You know, it's a instant knee-jerk reaction when you don't have that experience. And managed services opens the door to your small, mid-sized company to give them the resources that their large competitors can fund that they necessarily can't. So by providing them with the same level playing field and advantages with the people to address people, process, and technology, it's a huge win for any small to mid-sized business.
Just curious, for you guys as well, I have my thoughts on it, but with the role of, and we talked about it a bit, and Mark, you talked about it, but the role of automation and AI, because of the fact there is fatigue overload, you know, do you feel as though that's, you know, incorporating that for the smaller businesses as well who don't have the resources available to them, do you feel as though that will help, or do you feel as though that even with those advancements, that they need to be able to know, they need someone there that knows how to operate that?
So even with AI, yeah, let's go.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that exact same thing. I mean, even with AI, somebody has to be able to respond and know what they're looking at. And there's all sorts of AI tools out there, and you know, they definitely help. They cut out a lot of the garbage alerts that we see, but you need a person behind it at this point.
Yeah, we're not
Mark,
at
what
a
are your
place
thoughts
yet.
on AI?
What's
Sorry,
that,
Ed.
Mike?
No, I was just curious, Mark. No, I was just curious, Mark. What are your thoughts on AI and how they play a role?
Yeah, so what I really believe with AI is IBM is investing heavily in our Watson. You guys all watched Jeopardy a few years ago. We've taken that technology and we put it into our products. And what we've tried to do was help companies that, like you said, Lisa, have smaller staffs that don't have that, use some of that AI to actually help them remove some of the noise. And then a company like, you know, MicroStrategies, because you guys can help a customer tune that. They call it tuning your SIM or tuning your security tool. If you do that correctly and you have smart people like you guys have, like, you know, Ed, Scott, and Mike here do that, and Lisa, then you can actually utilize AI to help you mitigate the volume of threats. It'll help a smaller company use a tool like Curator to do that, and we're investing more into that. And one thing that I love about, I'm gonna kind of toot my own horn with Curator, is we have something called user behavior analysis that uses part of our AI. It doesn't just look at, hey, someone downloaded malware. It says, what did Mark do for the last couple days? And our AI goes, I think he's doing bad things or stupid things, and we will let you know that and let you create an offense or an alert or saying, hey, check out Mark. And here's why, and we'll tell you the 10 things Mark did that was wrong. And that's really AI driven. So I believe user behavior analysis is going to be a key moving forward in the security market. So when you look at tools, make sure you're looking at that, because users are your weakest point. I'll be honest with you. They're not too bright. No matter how much you tell them not to open up an email, they do it anyway. So you need things like user behavior analysis being fed by AI to help you find the stupid people in your company so you can help them become smarter. I know that was kind of funny, but I just wanted to share that with you, Mike.
Well, that was.
Don't say anything,
What are your
Scott.
thoughts? Yeah, Scott. Yeah.
Just kidding.
What are your thoughts there?
So you're right, Mark. When you're dealing with securing anything, the weakest link is always people. Always. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've breached an environment lawfully. I've been hired to do this, by the way. I've breached
Glad you clarified that, Ed. Glad you clarified that.
conducting my assessments, and yeah, okay, I could do all this really super cool TV hacking stuff and spend hours, days, weeks breaking in, or I could just pick up the phone and call somebody and socially engineer them to give me a password or a way in. And that's usually 8 out of 10 times my route because it's so successful. Whether you're dealing with phishing, whether you're dealing with vishing over the phone, or anything of that nature, I mean, it's highly successful. So no matter how much tech we have, we still experience breach, and that right there is the culprit behind why. And you have 2 different types of insider threats. Most people, when they hear that term, think about, you know, a bad guy in the office, a Confederate doing something, but that's not always the case. Actually, most of the time it's not. It's usually the unwilling accomplice, the person who accidentally clicks something or misconfigures something, or maybe they're going through a divorce and that extra 10 grand might look pretty good right about now. You know, things like that do happen, and they happen all the time. So user behavioral analysis really is a massive leap forward in security, because you're not just looking at the evidence digitally, you're examining patterns. And those patterns, when we deviate from those patterns, deserve a solid, deep investigative look.
Yeah, if I were to extend one more thing on what Ed's talking about, is a lot of security tools look at the wire, what's happening at the wire level, the transactions, the events. As you move up the chain into user behavior analysis, now you're looking at the user and what they are doing at that level. And then the newest one is, you know, we're looking at insights into the data. All of a sudden, you can start tracking what's happening at a database level. So all of a sudden, normally every day you have 50,000 queries against your credit card database, and all of a sudden you have 1 million. Are you looking at that today? What are you doing to that? What's your plan for 1 million credit card queries in a day should not be there when the average is 50,000? So again, start with the wire, then move to the user, and now you guys start looking at your crown jewels of your data, because that's where the hackers are trying to get to. So again, what's your plan? Again, you got to have a plan. That's where, you know, the people on this call can help customers get that plan to make sure they're hitting all facets of a security chain.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Every organization
Absolutely.
have a security incident response plan, and we can most definitely help you with that.
Is our friend Avery.
Absolutely.
Oh,
My
Avery's back.
my plan is I call Ed.
Before you send Ed, it's taken care of.
So Mike, we have time for maybe one more question for the panel, and then we'll do our wrap up.
Sure. I'm going to ask you guys, and I'll start with Mark because he's on my top left. But if there's one key takeaway from today's session that you'd want to share with the audience, what would it be? And I'm going to ask that of each of you. So have a response ready.
Sure. I mean, my takeaway today, especially from this panel discussion, which I learned a lot from myself, security is hard. It is hard, but it is so necessary. And my experience working with customers is if you go it alone, you have troubles. You really need a partner to help you do that, because it is hard, and you need someone that's been in the trenches working with lots of customers, have seen a lot. And so again, partner with the right partner. Again, that's my strategy, is don't go it alone. You need partners to help you get through there.
Thanks, Mark. How about you, Scott?
I would echo. Oh, sorry. I'll be quiet.
Go
Go ahead, Scott. I'm not talking. Your turn.
Employee education, end user education. All right, number one thing, we got it. We have to have everybody out there helping us.
Lisa?
Oh, no, I'm not. I was going to say, you know, you can't give in to the fatigue, because to Mark's point, it is hard, and it is something that you have to just become part of the DNA of what you do every day. It's not something that you just kind of get to, or, it's something that you have to be thinking about it constantly. The organization has to embrace it and need to take it seriously. It's not something that just people like Ed, and I don't mean to put Ed on the butt, but Ed clearly loves security. And it lives and breathes it every day, where not everyone necessarily has that same passion, but we really do have to make sure it's part of it. And I agree with you, Scott. Like, everybody has to take it seriously.
Ed, last but not least.
So, intelligence, all right. As business owners, you didn't get to where you are because you're stupid. You know, you learn to understand the intelligence and the things that affect you and your business and overcome those challenges. And security is no different. By having clear understandings of what's happening in your environment, gives you power and keeps you prosperous. So understand that this is not a spend. This truly is a return on your investment, and everyone should be investing in security.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for the fantastic discussion today and for participating. It was a really amazing discussion. And thank you everybody for joining us today, and have a great day.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Mark
all.
and Ed and
Here,
Scott.
guys.
And Mike, thank you for
Thank you, guys.
corralling us.